Okay folks, Brian here from Northwind Garage. I'm just going to do a rundown on this Woodland Mills HM130MAX 10th anniversary version. It's got the 14 horsepower electric start. I purchased it back in December. I put it together throughout the winter, and all my videos are on YouTube there, so you can go back and watch those. So I just want to cover some things, go over some things, some sort of saw milling. With this saw, will make it pay for itself, folks. I mean, you can saw virtually any size piece of lumber you want. I mean, you can saw little paint sticks, whatever your project requires. You can saw any dimension you want, and that has value. That has value. Whatever you want to be able to cut, you can cut it with this saw. So, and virtually extreme good quality too. I mean, albeit the wood that you're cutting is green, or it could be dry, depending on whatever it is. And basically, all the wood that I have is green for the most part. There's a couple pieces in there that have been down drying for a long period of time in a log pile, but most of it's all green. So if you do take the precautions to dry your lumber or build with it green, whatever you choose to do, and there's pluses and minuses for all of that, I just want you to know that you can virtually cut, you can cut paper thin veneer with this mill, and full 8-10 feet long. You can do that. You can do that with this mill. So if your project requires that, if this was wet, it would bend without breaking, but if your project requires that, you can do it. So you need to keep that in mind. This is under an inch thick, or 1/8 inch thick, folks, that this piece was cut, and I cut a full 8-foot length, and just for purposes of being able to handle it here, I cut it down. So keep in mind, you can do that with this mill. Also, I want to cover some of the things you're going to need. So you're going to need some spare parts, blades. Let's talk about blades for a minute. So on my mill, when I bought it, I only got the blade that came on it, and that was a big mistake. Don't do that. Get a couple blades with it. They're a little more money from Woodland Mills because virtually they have to ship them. So other companies have to ship them too, but if they come out of Canada, and Woodland Mills does have a place in Buffalo, I think, and nothing against Woodland Mills blades, which I think are Lennox anyway, but which are darn good blades. They're darn good blades. So I did a little shopping, and I found some that are a little cheaper, and it's from a company called Kenne-Saw and Supply Company, and they're out of Georgia. Actually, a gentleman on the internet had a YouTube video, and he buys them from the same place. So basically, Kenne-Saw Supply, P.O. Box 265, White, Georgia. You can call them if you want at 877-420-9235. They're also on the interwebs. If you go on to Google and type in Kenne-Saw and Supply Company, it comes right up. So I encourage you to do that. Also, if you take your owner's manual with your mill, it may not be updated, folks. There may have been some changes. See, this was 7 August 2020. So I got my mill in December. What's printed in this for the saw blade size is a 7/8 pitch, 181 teeth, 1.25 inches wide, 161 inches long. Well, my mill is 158 inches long. So you want to check that. I went ahead and ordered 20 saw blades from kenne-Saw and Supply, and they came the wrong size because I used the number out of the manual that came with my mill. Apparently certain models have different sizes, and you want to be aware of that. You want to make sure you're looking at the right size that's on your mill. And basically, the guy from kenne-Saw showed me how to measure them. And what you do is you have a flat spot in your kitchen or your living room or somewhere where you have a flat spot with no carpet, and you lay a pencil on the floor or whatever, and you make a mark on your saw blade, and you lay it flat and roll it like a hula hoop out till you come back to that mark. And then you lay another pencil down, and then you mark in between those two pencils, or measure in between those two pencils, and you will have the length of your saw blade. And the guy from kenne-Saw said that's very accurate. So I used his advice. I measured my saw blade. It turned out to be 157.5. So a 158-inch saw blade fits on my mill. That's contrary to what's written in my manual. So you want to keep that in mind when you go to order blades from a different company than Woodland Mills. And also, I think it says on the website that if you have the HM130MAX, that there's a couple year differences. So they might have changed the band wheel or something of that sort to change the size of the saw blade. So you've got to be aware of that before you go ordering saw blades. Now, I want you to have a look at these saw blades that I got from them. They're very high quality saw blades. They last quite a while. This log that they're actually sitting on is my last video. We used one of these blades to cut that up, and I got a good portion of that log cut up with one blade, and it's still on the mill right now. And that one will be changed out before I finish sawing the log. But you can do quite a bit of sawing with each blade. I bought 20 at a time. I'm also going to build a sharpener, and I will have a video on that. So, moving forward here. Now, I got to clean this up. This is another thing you want to, before you start sawing for the day, folks, you want to open up and check everything out, take a good look at things. This obviously needs to be cleaned up. So, when you're sawing big logs like this and you happen to hit an obstruction and you have to back out, it's a good idea to have some wedges around to be able to back the saw blade out. You never want to back the saw blade out without the blade turning with soap on it, or soap and water on it, lubricant on it, so it can back out easily. You want to be very careful doing it because you will pull the saw blade off, and it's very easy to do that. I've done it several times. So when it does do that, what it does is it frays your drive belt. When that blade comes off, it flops around in there, and this is still turning when it's flopping around in there, and it rubs up against that blade or belt, and it frays the edge of your belt. So you want to be aware of that. Now, for belts on the machine, I went onto the website and I looked up the belt, and I'm just trying to find it in here. Trying to find it. I should have had it all marked out before I started this video. But anyway, to save a little money on drive belts, I'm going to try. I ordered these off of Amazon. Now I went on to the Woodland Max website. It said right on there, a BX80, which is a belt size, a BX80 belt size. I haven't tried them yet, but I ordered a belt, a BX80, which my mill model year and all that, I checked all that. It takes a BX80. Now, something could have changed. This might not fit. I got $24 into these belts. If they don't fit, I'm going to be selling them on eBay. So bottom line is, I've tried to save a little time, and I went ahead and just ordered them, got them coming, so I could be sawing wood on my day off here. So next thing I want to cover, this little gadget here that prevents you from hitting the log stops. I didn't like it, folks. I basically, it kept hanging me up when I wanted to do my last cut. Usually it prevents you from hitting your log stops and things when you got it adjusted in the right position. The thing wound up loosening up on me. The first couple of times I used it, I couldn't get the size piece I wanted, and I had to fiddle with it, and I just didn't like it. So I'd rather be having a lookout for where my saw blade is all the time. If I need this to stop me from hitting a log stop, well, you know, it's my bad if I hit the log stops, because I've taken it off of there, and it tends to hinder me more than it does help me. And now I'm not saying remove anything on your mill. I'm just saying I took it off because I have more of a tendency to ruin my saw blade with it. I just didn't like it on there. I kept bumping into the log stops, and I just took it out of my way, and I just felt a little more freedom to be able to make the cuts that I wanted to without it on there. Now, if you're learning and you're not aware of all the things going on with your saw, you might want to keep it in there so you don't hit your log stops. Now, I diligently try to not cut any metal with this blade, but you're going to cut metal with it. It's going to happen. If you're not accidentally doing that, even with this thing in, you're not cutting any wood. So that's my opinion on it. Also, I got these off of, this is skidding tongs. These are indispensable, folks. You want to have these around to be able to use them to move your logs around. Now, that's another whole ball of wax. So let's look over here. Now I have a slip ring chain on these big logs. I try to set this right in the middle of the chain. I have a chain that's a big hook in the middle of my bucket, and if you set this right in the middle of the log you're trying to pick up, usually I just bump it with my bucket, lift it up, put a 2x4 or 2x6, you'll see it sitting right here, right under the center of the log. You can just thread this underneath the log, chain it up, lift it up, and you can have that log balanced right in the center, and you can spin it, you can move it around. While I'm moving the tractor, my cameraman helps me put the log on the mill, and I'll get some video of that, but I'm going to need another helper to be able to get some good video of that, because it's a two-man operation when you're moving these ginormous logs. You definitely don't want to be messing around with that by yourself. So this is the type of chain that I use, with a slip hook on the end, because it chokes around the log to be able to hold it tight, and that helps us to be able to put these big logs on the mill. So the next thing I want to cover is just a cheap little electric chainsaw. I happen to have electricity here where I'm at. I just run a 100-foot cord out here. This is indispensable. Indispensable. I mean, you just need it. You just need it. You just need a chainsaw if you're going to be doing this stuff. So this is just a handy little saw. I love it because I don't have to pull on the cord to get it running. I just happen to have electricity here. It works great for the little cuts that I have to make to be able to square something up, or cut the top of a slab off so I can finished cutting it to make my first cut on these ginormous logs. So this is a very handy piece of equipment to have, and this was like $89 at the Home Depot, so very affordable. Now its capabilities, that's another story, but definitely it helps out immensely. So some of the cuts we're able to make. These are the cuts that I made off this giant log in the last video. We had a rainstorm here, and there's several of them here. These are 1-inch boards, folks. You can't even go to the store and buy a board like that anymore. You cannot buy that. If you have a log that needs to be cut, you can cut it on this sawmill and get boards that you cannot buy at the store. So there's quality in that, folks. There's quality in that, and I respect that. So yeah, is it green lumber? Yes, but if you treat it correctly and you handle it correctly, you won't be dissatisfied with the end product. I mean, for what I'm going to use these boards for, I happen to have an access to large logs from a tree company that I get them very cheap, and they give me a good deal, and it's right down the street. So I don't have to go far. They drop the logs off here for me, and I'm able to cut them up. Now, the downside of that is you're going to come across metal in your wood, or insects, that sort of thing. The upside is you're going to have pieces of wood that you normally would not get from old growth forest. This stuff grew in somebody's yard. The tree got dangerous, or was too close to a house, or somebody added onto their house. They had to get rid of the tree, and what happens is you wind up with a product that is few and far between now. So, with that said, gorgeous boards from this mill. Now, the next thing is this ginormous pile here. You're going to have a way to deal with that. You're going to have be able to burn on your property. You're going to have a place to get rid of all this stuff, which I do. I have the ability to do that. That's something you want to think about, because eventually you're going to have a ginormous pile after you've cut for a while. Okay, folks, so those are some quick items that you're going to need for the mill. Even before you start cutting wood, folks, you want to be thinking ahead to have those items that I spoke of: the chainsaw, some extra blades, and it's all a no-brainer pretty much. You know you're going to be needing that stuff, but when you're making this big of a purchase, folks, sometimes the last $100 that you're spending in your budget is on the mill, and basically that's the way it was for me. Pretty much knocked my budget right out. So those are a few things I wish I had ahead of time. I did add them. You know, I wound up not being able to cut a whole lot of wood in the beginning because I didn't have enough blades. So you want to keep that in mind, folks. But the quality that you can get with one of these mills is amazing. It really is amazing. There's a whole lot of reasons for wavy wood, and you hear all the "don't get a band mill, don't get a band mill." Well, let me tell you, folks, get a band mill. If you're just starting out, you're on a budget for the price of I used to say a high-end four-wheeler, but now I guess it's a low-end four-wheeler. For the price of a low-end four-wheeler, you can have yourself a nice mill, and that cuts just about any quality lumber you're going to want. I mean, now I haven't cut any hardwood on this yet, but it's just amazing. It's just amazing, and they've come a long ways with them, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that, and you know, a lot of the parts and pieces and whatnot come from China, but they got to source the parts where they're cheap, I guess. And for me, do I necessarily like sending my money out of the country? No, I do not. But in order for me to accomplish what I needed to accomplish, I had to cut a couple corners, and that's one of the corners I had to cut. And until we can have this quality of manufacturing and something this inexpensive in our country, then unfortunately that's the way it's going to be, because a lot of people can't afford it. So you know, you have a tendency to turn to the cheaper products like the Harbor Freights, and you know, instead of buying the most expensive Milwaukee tool, you buy a Harbor Freight tool to get you through the job or the project, and until you can afford to get the next bigger thing up. So it makes it possible for the little guy to do big things. So keep that in mind too. So I mean, there's pluses and minuses about buying things out of China and Indonesia and Korea and all these other third world countries and whatnot. I mean, their labor force is mostly children in a lot of these places, and it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. The very cell phone that I'm taping this video on probably was touched by children in the manufacturing process, or young people. Number one, their eyes are better. Bottom line, folks, our world is like that, and I don't know how to stop it, but I don't know how to get this cheaply. I don't know how to make this happen without going to the China and the other countries where the stuff is manufactured. The manufacturing processes have all moved out of this country, and shame on us for making that happen. I have no idea why we did that. I mean, we started the Industrial Revolution, and look at us now. Look at us now. People copy everything that comes from this country and make it cheaper. So we've got to find a happy medium, folks. There's my spiel on that. I don't like to talk about politics. I like to keep it. In fact, I'll probably cut this. How'd I get on that? How'd I get on that?
I got on that and I got up here.
Okay, folks, so Brian here. Okay, folks, so that's it on this video. Just look at the quality you get from this mill. You know, as long as you got a nice sharp blade on it and everything's working optimum and you got everything adjusted right, the thing cuts like a dream. So I can appreciate that. Okay, folks, so on this next video we plan to do a little maintenance, like change the oil in the Kohler engine, and maybe change the drive belt and put on a fresh sharp blade. So peace out, Northwind Garage. God bless you. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Appreciate you. God bless you.
God bless you.